Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am your host, Mary Katharine. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Vic Matus of the Washington Free Beacon. We got a lot going on today. We're obviously going to do an Israel update and responses here at home. There's this week, there's a giant Israel rally on the mall, which I will be visiting. I can report back on that after I've been. We got some stuff on the Hill. We got some 2024 race to the bottom, and Gavin Newsom making a fool of himself. So stick around for that. And Randi Weingarten doing the same. We always want to touch on that when she makes a fool of herself in public. But before we do that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine.
I saw it was your anniversary.
Yes, anniversary was technically just the other day, but because it was a weekday, it's a school night. My wife and I decided that we were going to do it earlier when there was a moment where our daughter can sleep over at her cousin's and my son was on a hiking trip. So
Nice.
Kate and I decided on Friday to Saturday to go to Middleburg, Virginia, wine country, and we stayed at the Red Fox Inn. It was lovely, and I'll tell you what happened. So we go there. This is 19 years. We have this wonderful time there. We're strolling down. The next day, Saturday, was a gorgeous day, a fall day in Middleburg. The colors, the leaves are changing, and it's really quite a magical street, the main street, you know. And we went down a side street because there was a little sign, and I could smell this amazing food coming out, like grilled food emanating from this place. Okay. And so I followed it down. And it was a little place called the Side Saddle Cafe and the Farms of Athenry. So it's a butcher shop run by an elderly husband and wife.
Okay.
And the guy just walks out. And we start chatting, and I ask him questions about the grill. We walk in. We're talking more. They had a nephew, and they put a little tribute to him in the corner because he was killed in Iraq. It was with SEAL Team 1 he was working with. So really impressive. So that's up there. So it's very pro-military. The wife comes out. We start chatting about all the meats that they get from the farm. And then next thing you know, she says, here, you got to try this. And it was a morsel of cooked steak that was medium rare. I don't think there was any seasoning on it or very little. It was the best steak I've ever had in my entire life. Forget about the Wagyu, forget about the Kobe, A5, A4, whatever. This thing was incredible. And it was like a New York strip. And the next thing you know, Kate's talking to the guy. I'm in the kitchen now with this woman, and she's having me taste turkey stock. Mm-hmm. And we didn't even order anything. And we walk out of there, and I said to Kate, says, you realize we're in a Hallmark movie.
You are.
This is because we're down the street. There's all these wonderful, it was Veterans Day, so the beautiful banners are up. And we start looking at homes, and I'm like, do we go back to the city? Because then, they're always pulled into the city, aren't they, for work?
No, your heart grew while you were there, and you now have the spirit of Middleburg, and you can't leave.
You can't leave. And it's like, well, my job, I got to go back. But then we're like, but we can stay here.
You got to put on a show. Bring the town together.
Mary Katharine, have you been watching? We'll have to do an episode of this later next month. Have you started watching the shows? I
haven't. You know what? I don't start Christmas observances,
yes,
until a little bit later.
Okay.
My family was very late on starting Christmas. I know there's a lot of talk about this. My family started December 12th because my dad's birthday was December 12th. So we would often get the tree on December 12th, which is it's
considerate.
Yes.
So you don't want to get overshadowed. But secularly speaking, that's very late.
Yes,
it is. I mean, there are diehard Christians who will say, Christmas begins on Christmas Day.
Yes.
But for everybody else, of course, the Christmas stations on CBS, they're on now.
I feel like in the 80s and 90s, it was more normal to do it mid-December. Now it's like that would be considered insane.
It's now like almost as soon as Halloween's over.
People are already doing it. Yes. Now, I always get a live tree, so we have to wait until at least post-Thanksgiving.
Yes, you don't want to get too early
with that because it'll become just a tumbleweed in your house.
And a danger.
Don't light anything near it.
No. How are you otherwise? I wanted to ask you briefly about Vegas, because you said something to me.
Oh, that I had the most boring trip to Vegas that any human has ever had?
I was going to say you in Vegas would be like me camping. Like, what's the point? Like, why would I be there?
It's true.
So you did nothing. You didn't go to... I gave you a list later of places to go, like Sapphire and the Spearmint Rhino and Crazy Horse 2 and Glitter Gulch, but no.
Strangely, I did not make it to those, nor to their champagne rooms. But no, this is just a consequence of having a lot going on that week. Mostly, I had lovely hosts. I spoke to a nice trade association board meeting, and it was a great place. I was at the Four Seasons, but I was tired, man. I was very tired.
I have an important question for you.
Yeah.
Because we discussed it's the Four Seasons is off strip.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a casino at the Four Seasons?
Yes.
Like an actual, like not just slots, but tables and things.
There are tables in there.
Oh,
yeah.
that's exciting.
And
So-
I could see the Sphere from my room, so I
that's
got to watch
wild.
that a little bit. That was the big excitement I had. So I flew in, I napped a little, I prepared for my speech, I went and gave a speech, had a nice dinner with these lovely folks, did some Q&A, stuck around long enough to be socially acceptable because I was beat. It was like midnight our time.
Yeah, the time is a 3
and I
hours
had been up
difference.
late the night before.
Yeah.
So I go back and I snuggle into my Four Seasons bed.
Oh.
And then the next day, I got up and went on a 40-minute odyssey for a plain-ass cup of coffee because I have decided that Vegas is a place where you can get exotic and dirty things very easily, but finding simple things, not so easy.
I had a similar experience. I was actually with Sonny Bunch. We walked forever to just find a cup of coffee.
Just a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Because you're not going to see, there's not like a Starbucks on the strip like that.
No,
I
and
don't
now
think.
they have Nespresso machines in your room, which is a very nice machine, but I don't love espresso.
No,
I
you
just
want-
want
you just
a
want a
big,
cup of
solid
coffee.
cup of coffee. The first place I go is like a fancy little joint that has no dairy products
What?
to put in my coffee. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. This is non-negotiable for me. So, so I leave that place and I go wandering looking for a Starbucks. It was the most ludicrous thing ever,
Yeah.
Vic. And I'm not terrible with directions, but you know how Vegas can be. It's built to make you confused. So I'm using my phone.
There's no sense of time. There's no clocks anywhere.
I'm
right?
using
Yeah.
my phone to locate a Starbucks within the building that I cannot find because the whole thing is so circuitous.
Oh yeah,
and
well, no,
ridiculous.
within the hotels and casinos. Now the layout of the city itself is pretty straightforward with Las Vegas.
Yes, no, this
Boulevard
is
and Flamingo
inside.
yeah,
And they
inside.
want to
No,
trap me in the slots so that I lose
Yeah.
all my money, but I'm not doing
There's
it, Vic.
no windows. There's no windows, and even they say they pump it with a lot of cold oxygen in,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So you really get
Yeah.
awake. You cannot fall asleep inside a
So
casino.
I finally found the Starbucks, and then that line was about 20 minutes
Right.
long, and I decided to leave that line and go and sit down for breakfast just so someone would bring me a
A
plain
cup of coffee. Did the same thing. The line was so long, and I think we were going towards like Caesars, and I said, "This is crazy. I just want a cup. Can't we just get a cup of coffee somewhere?" You couldn't. And
There's a lot of things you can get in
Yes.
Vegas, but you can't get that.
I was going to say, because here, of course, everywhere you turn, there's a coffee shop, but I can't find any slots.
That's so strange.
So strange.
So strange. But from there I went, hold on. I got to update you guys. From there I went to Georgia
Oh,
because my kind husband said to me, "Hey, you're going to be gone anyway. Why don't you swing through Georgia and go to a
Wow.
football game
wow.
because this is the last one at home."
Yes.
And so I went to the Ole Miss Georgia game
Oh, my
on
goodness.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
Under the lights. Beautiful. Now, the forecast was not good.
Okay.
It was rainy and cold. Now, cold for Georgia. It was like 50 degrees. It wasn't too bad. It ended up misting all day. It wasn't too bad at all.
Okay.
I wore like 5 layers. I looked like a 90s mom going hunting. I had like a flannel and high-waisted jeans and a camo hat. It
So you
was
just
very-
blended right in, is what you're saying.
I really did. Well, normally I would dress up a little bit more, but on this occasion I was like, I'm not putting on a dress to go
Right.
stand around in the rain and 50 degrees. So I'm not too old for that, guys. So I went to Athens. It was so wonderful.
Oh.
I don't know if there's a word for the thing where I start crying just to be in Sanford Stadium because it is so beautiful and moving and I love it so much. It is one of my favorite places on earth. It is just the best.
It's something that I cannot relate to.
Oh, your Georgetown
No,
experience
I
is
don't
not
feel like that
this?
when I go to the Cap Center or whatever they call it, the Capital One Arena.
It is. It's just, it's moving. There's so many people there. You're all there for the same
Yeah.
thing. Even your opposition on the other side of the team
All
is
in it
so
together.
excited. On the other side of the stadium is so excited. And then I do want to say, you know what I didn't see on the University of Georgia campus? Not one of? Hamas supporters.
Oh,
It's not.
no one was waving
No one was
ISIS
waving
flags?
No one was waving that flag
Yeah.
at the University of Georgia campus. Everyone was out enjoying themselves, doing tailgates. Just
Yeah.
the entire streets, everything
That's wonderful.
flooded with people, and didn't see one of those. And I just want to say that perhaps the hack is to send your kids to an SEC party school because you're going to pay less, they're going to learn more, and there's not rampant anti-Semitism.
No, it's still where normal is normal.
Yes.
Right? There's not a new normal now. It's just
No,
like
it's-
the way
it's-
things used to be.
And honestly, if you need to feel better about America, a good place to go is an SEC game on Veterans Day.
Wow.
Because every single timeout was dedicated to service members. The scoreboard was constantly lit up with UGA vets. There were a bunch of former championship Bulldogs. I don't know if you guys know that we're the 2-time national champions.
A couple times. Yeah.
We're currently undefeated. And there were a bunch of former championship Bulldogs in the stadium, including Stetson Bennett, Jordan Davis, coming to visit. Very exciting. Everybody was all cheering. And then this wonderful guy, Timothy Miller, who is a tenor in Atlanta, sang God Bless America. And I just want to play a little clip of that. I think Jennifer has it. I mean,
that is amazing.
So beautiful.
So he's a tenor and he works at the Bulwark? Oh, different Tim Miller. Sorry.
He, by the way, at the end, what you can't see is someone did a close-up on the Jumbotron, and I was watching it as it happened. First of all, really beautiful to hear everybody singing together. And then at the end, there's a close-up on him, and he is crying as he's finishing the song. It was gorgeous. Beautiful night in Athens. And, we whooped that ass.
Are you
whooped them?
Not knowing much about college football per se, are you guys heading to a face-off? A face-off, is that the term? No, a championship game with Michigan then, because Michigan's still undefeated.
Undefeated, yes. Washington is also undefeated. We are going to the SEC championship. We clinched that before we walked into the stadium because Missouri beat Tennessee. So that was nice. That was off our plates.
Yes.
We were going in,
so
definitely making it to the SEC, the head of the
and Michigan,
top of the
of course,
SEC
is
East.
Big Ten.
We will be facing Alabama in the SEC championship game, which obviously always means that your undefeated season is in danger because Alabama is Alabama.
Right.
But we are also Georgia, and we are not too shabby.
And if you win that, then
it's off to the playoffs. Yes. And certainly Michigan is in the sights.
Yeah, with or without their coach.
Yeah. Some people on Twitter were telling me the other day the Washington Huskies are the real dogs because they're undefeated. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Well,
we play in the SEC, guys. I looked at your schedule.
When I was when I was a March Madness fanatic for basketball, right? The fear used to be we don't spend enough time watching those Pacific Coast games, those Pac-10 games, those West Coast games, the WAC or the Pac. We don't know. They could be really good. We don't know this year. It's Gonzaga. And, that was always the fear because we're so focused on it. You don't have that fear, though. You think that it's not just SEC centric.
Because I didn't watch them beat Stanford. I need to see that in detail. Okay. Oregon I'll give you. I'll spot you, Oregon. All right, should we do the news?
Let's do it.
I had a great time. Made my year. Thank you to my husband for taking the kids for another day and a half so that my good friend in Georgia, Sanders Hickey, thank you for the tickets, could take me out there, and we had a great tailgate. By the way, at the journalism school, there's a fantastic tailgate, and this is why you should send your kids to this school. The journalism school. The front of it has a lawn. And what used to be just a wall of windows is now a wall of windows that opens like a garage door so that you can have an indoor-outdoor event. And in the back of that room, first of all, it's catered, so you can have all your tailgate food. In the back of that room, there is a bar decorated like the hedges for which Sanford Stadium is famous, with a giant bulldog in the middle. And I say, this is what it's like to be an alum here. That's what it's like. I got an open bar made of hedges. I got a garage door
UGA.
opening onto my academic building so that you can have a proper tailgate.
It's nice.
It's nice. All right. Moving on.
Oh.
So, let's talk about Israel. I was just reading up a little bit because I think it's worth revisiting exactly what the objective is for Israel in Gaza. They obviously want to rid the area of Hamas, which would be a favor to both Palestinians and Israelis, something that many of the protesters on the pro-Palestinian side lose sight of because they tend to be a little too often pro-Hamas. So they're going very deliberately through Gaza. They're in the heart of Gaza now, Gaza City. They're surrounding these hospitals where they have to have firefights. It's so strange that the hospitals fire back at them. Because
I didn't realize that the doctors and the patients are fully.
So
it must be them.
So it turns out, as we've known for years, that there is a lot of activity, terrorist Hamas activity inside and around civilian targets, including children's hospitals.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a war crime.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But I just wanted to note that one of the reasons I've been reading up on why this is so deliberate and slow is, you'll notice they haven't incurred actually a ton of casualties while going in, pushing into Gaza. Right. And that's partly because, look, they're fighting terrorist cells who hide underground. And as soon as they're sort of playing to be, it's terrorists. I don't have to be sensitive. They're playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
So they pop up out of these tunnels and they send precision-guided missiles, ammunition, and use technology to bop them as soon as they're out before they disappear into their tunnels again. This means that they don't do a ton of direct engagements, which saves Israeli lives. And one of the reasons they're going slowly is partly to preserve hostage lives and Palestinian civilian lives, because they don't want to just carpet everything, because that doesn't go well for either hostages or other civilians who are used as human shields by Hamas.
Yeah. Again, I'd like to ask sort of, the people who are protesting, if they at all blame Hamas for anything. Do they bear any responsibility?
Occasionally you'll get a sop to that.
Yeah.
But it's largely just, I do think it's largely just Israel is coded as oppressor.
Yeah.
Jewish people are coded as white and powerful. Yeah. And therefore the IDF can do nothing moral. So even if it's taking the greatest precautions and incurring more losses than it would if it went more aggressively.
It's very difficult to get any actual good, honest footage from inside Gaza, from where, Hamas territory, because, of course, the media is very much, they want to control what you see. But every now and then, some footage will leak out, and you'll see, for example, Palestinians wanting to get out, wanting to escape, and they're at gunpoint being forced back in because, Hamas doesn't want you to escape. They'd rather have you be martyrs and die for the cause. It's, that's just a central tenet of Islamism, right?
Yes.
It's like there's no peace is not an option with Israel. It's about jihad, and so that is an issue. But what's interesting is I guess the IDF has made more progress than even they expected. So they're at the hospital, as you mentioned, right now, and as we're taping this, and I think they have lost the total number of lives at the moment for IDF is 47.
Each one of them a terrible tragedy.
Yes,
and may their memories be a blessing, and also. For a campaign of this nature.
For a major operation, it is quite surprising.
I was worried about the urban warfare. And
everybody was. Yeah. Absolutely. And so it's very interesting that they've gotten this far, and they've managed to take down and kill a number of these Hamas commanders, if I'm not mistaken.
A great example of the transactional nature of the terrorists that you were talking about, who are willing to just jettison Palestinian innocent civilian lives, as well as Israelis, of course, for their cause is this is a New York Times report found that a Gaza Health Ministry spokesman told this is New York Times reported. This is not a IDF report. Said the head of Al Shifa Hospital, which is one of the hospitals in Gaza, refused to accept fuel because, quote, taking this fuel would give Israel credit for allowing fuel into Gaza.
That's what it's all about.
This is a hospital that you will hear is low on fuel and low on supplies and therefore must have these things, or else Israel is guilty of a war crime. Israel takes pains to get fuel to that hospital which it knows is going to have a cost because some of that fuel, at least, if not all of it, is going to go to terrorists who will use it against them. But they get it in there. And the heads of Hamas, the elected government long ago of this area, says no to that. We would like citizens to suffer and possibly die instead of giving what might be a PR victory to the people of Israel.
Right. No, it's a twofer because you don't want to get Israel credit, and plus you get the bonus of possible martyrdom.
Yeah, more people
that's
to
right.
show off.
Another Hamas spokesman, by the way, had mentioned that when asked about providing aid and care for the Palestinian people, they said that that's not our concern. It's the United Nations' responsibility to help them, not ours. And but we know this now because of various TV interviews that these Hamas spokesmen have given, where they openly say that they're not actually concerned with governing.
Yes,
they're just concerned with killing.
Yes.
And so, from the time that they took power until now, and certainly the last several years, they have been spending on planning the October 7th attack.
Strangely, not on helping the people of Gaza. Speaking of the international community, the IDF went into the Randi D.C. hospital, which is a children's hospital. And there's video of this from inside Israel. This is a organization monitored and run by international organizations, including the World Health Organization. And what they found was a bunch of Hamas tools, possibly places where people were being held hostage. Let's play a little bit of an IDF spokesperson giving the briefing on this after he was in this hospital.
I just got back from Gaza, where I joined an operation inside the Randi D.C. Children's Hospital. I went to the hospital with a video camera and personally documented more concrete evidence. The concrete evidence are that Hamas uses hospitals as an instrument of war. Underneath the hospital, in the basement, we found a Hamas command and control center, suicide bomb vests, grenades, AK-47 assault rifles, explosive devices, RPGs and other weapons, computers, money, etc. And we also found signs that indicate that Hamas held hostages here. This is currently under our investigation, but we also have intelligence that verifies it. Additionally, we found evidence that Hamas terrorists came back from the massacre on October 7th to this hospital, among others, after butchering Israelis in their homes, executing the innocent, murdering entire families, burning babies, burning young women alive, and uses this children's hospital, Randi D.C., to hide. Hamas hides in hospitals. Today, we will expose this to the world. For the last week, we have been conducting an effort to safely evacuate the patient being treated there and in other hospitals as well. Israel helped the hospital manager evacuate the Gazan patient to a safer hospital. Yesterday, we were informed by the hospital that the last 18 patients in the Randi D.C. hospital had safely evacuated to a safer hospital. This is because our war is against Hamas, not against the people in Gaza, especially not the sick, wounded, or the women, or the children. Our war is against Hamas, who uses them as human shields. I will now share the raw footage that we filmed a few hours ago, proving that Hamas systematically runs its terror machine under hospitals in Gaza.
So that is a children's hospital in Gaza. Also, you don't love ever having to imagine exactly where these hostages are and how they're being treated. They found, a chair with rope next to it that suggests that some of these folks may have been kept there and
tortured. And it's now over a month, and we're talking about children. And for all these demands for ceasefire, you rarely hear about, well, what about the 200? what about the 9 Americans or whoever? Anything about how to get them back?
By the way, Jake Tapper bringing up the
yeah.
other day that I believe there's a 3-year-old American
Yes,
held
there is.
hostage
Yeah.
in Gaza. And there are just tons of Americans out in the street not ever mentioning that this baby should come back home.
Yeah, and what is our government doing about that? That's the big question. And I hope they're doing something about it. I don't want to sound cynical. I mean, I genuinely hope that we don't know about it, but behind the scenes they're doing everything, because you would hope they would do it for all of us to help extract an American.
Hasn't been the Biden administration's strong suit.
No, it hasn't been. And the other thing is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she tried to clarify her ceasefire position, and she said it means a cessation of all violence and the return of hostages.
Okay.
So if she calls for that,
maybe there's an order of operations problem here.
Yes. I'm also sure they'll listen to her.
For sure.
Now, I'm throwing this out at you now because I was told about it this morning, and then I just saw it before we started the show, which is there was a screening of the October 7 attack on Capitol Hill.
Right.
I'm not sure if it's the same screening that Gal Gadot was behind in Los Angeles, for the screening of that particular show. From what our friend Josh Kraushaar says, members of Congress were leaving either in silence or in tears. AOC was there for at least part of it. I don't know about Rashida Tlaib. So,
yeah, she AOC, by the way, Chad Pergram quoted her, and I just found this amusing.
Yes.
Some of her talking about ceasefire. She says, ceasefire means defend the innocent. Ceasefire means transcend cycles of violence. To me, in that sense, a ceasefire is not just realpolitik. It is spiritual. We are being called to be higher than our history. We are being called to transcend the tit for tat. I love this. First of all, doesn't make any sense. Second of all, I love how it's all soaring and then it ends with transcend the tit for tat.
Again,
not exactly Obama.
There was a ceasefire, and it was
before October 7th.
Yes, and it was violated on October 7th.
Should we do some You Love to Hear It?
I can't believe this. Go
People
ahead.
keep surprising me, okay? And I
crazy.
have to give them their props. We should note that Senator John Fetterman remains not just a steadfast supporter of Israel, but a vociferous one.
Yeah.
He's got hostage posters plastered all over his office, all over outside his office. Mm-hmm. He has walked out of the Capitol grounds or out of the Capitol building past pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas protesters who are yelling things at him, and he's waving an Israeli flag. The guy is going above and beyond.
It's a great video. I feel like he's feeding off of that, and this is a guy who, of course, was everybody's hero, especially in the Pennsylvania Senate race against Dr. Oz. And it's very interesting in that video where he walks out waving the flag, basically in their faces as he walks past them. The protesters' reactions, right?
Right.
One common one is shame. You hear that one a lot. Shame, like it's Game of Thrones.
Right.
Shame. And then the other one is, you're an embarrassment to Pennsylvania. I mean, it's a real, these supporters now are in a real dilemma because these are their leaders.
Right.
And if not them, who are they going to turn to? The squad? I don't know. And it's not just Fetterman.
By the way, I'm not going to move off from Fetterman just yet because I want to give him just so much cred for this, because I love anyone, whether I disagree with them or not, I love anyone who can handle a heckler.
Oh.
And he did the funniest thing the other day where he was being yelled at by a heckler. That's not protected speech, guys. You can't shout down other people. He's being yelled at a heckler, and he's engaging with him a little bit. And then he says, joke's on you. I had a stroke and I can't fully understand what you just said.
And he could say a lot because he's got another 5.5 years.
Oh yeah. So. Oh yeah. But I do enjoy, it's self-deprecating. It's funny.
Does it fluster the protesters in the
Well, it certainly gets the crowd on your side, right?
Yeah.
And he had listened to him a bit. And actually, Speaking of hecklers, let's go to Hillary Clinton reacting to a heckler at Columbia University.
For the American people, and
well,
neither are
that's
you.
your opinion. That's your opinion.
Yes, that's my opinion.
Well, then sit down. We've heard your opinion. Thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to people who are
I'm
on
not
the
going to
front
stop.
lines
I'm not going to stop
working on
I'm
behalf
gonna wait
of human
here.
rights.
I'm going to exercise my free speech.
But it's
until
not
I'm
free
removed.
speech when you are disrupting
Yes,
everybody
it is.
else's opportunity
It is free
to speak.
speech. This is free speech, everyone. This is free speech. That is not free speech.
So I just love that she knows where the line is. She's explaining it to a college student.
Yeah.
And then she's just like, look, somebody said to me the other day, like, maybe she wasn't so bad. I reject that.
No.
She is-
outside of this realm, they all have terrible opinions, but let's just enjoy the moment.
But here's the thing. I think she's a dishonest person.
Oh.
I understand why she lost a historic race to none other than Donald Trump. That made sense to me when she lost that race. However, even though I disagree with her, even though I think she's often dishonest, she has a thing where she knows when to act like an adult.
Yeah.
And that's what she's doing here. Maybe to a grating degree, because she's like, sit down.
Yeah.
We're done. But you know what? That's what's needed here.
This is Hillary Clinton. You know, this was their hero from, 2016, and it's just, when you listen to this is an adult, right? The protester, the disruptor is an adult. Right. And yet it sounds like a 3-year-old child. And it's like she has to explain to a child what free speech is and what it isn't, right? Yes, you are entitled to your opinions. You can share your opinions. But stopping somebody else from talking is not free speech. You get to talk. You're done. Now it's her turn to talk. She was invited to talk.
Yep.
And this person, and he's having this little temper tantrum like a little brat.
Yes. And by the way, I'm sure is welcome to ask a question or stand quietly with a sign or what have you. But he's decided to take this tack. I want to hear a little bit more from Hillary. How often have I ever said that in my life?
No.
What I have done is I have asked Hillary Rodham Clinton to denounce the president's openly warmongering, suicidal, idiotic speech.
And
That's
I've given
what I've
my
asked.
answer. I will
That's
not
what
do
I've
that.
done.
So that's the end of our conversation.
Okay,
but I'll still meet you outside. But you're done.
Right now.
Not only, first of all, sit down. We're done. I've answered your question, but I will meet you outside to discuss. Now, could that be a threat? Possibly. But I think
why don't we take this outside is what Hillary Clinton's thinking,
You know what?
We all saw what happened to Jeffrey Epstein. I'd be
would-
pretty scared if I were this protester.
Ha ha ha. These are jokes. Don't flag us.
Kidding. Don't move
flag
us on
our
the chart, please.
content.
On the chart, please. No. Okay.
One last, love to hear it. This is Jerry Nadler tweeting. A note to college administrators. While protecting free speech is critical, equally so is preventing and prosecuting criminal behavior, ensuring all students are able to access their education free from discrimination. Make your policies crystal clear to all students and faculty. If necessary, update them for the realities of this moment. Publicize that, and you must enforce them vigorously. This was a response to news that MIT, instead of enforcing its own rules, decided not to enforce its own rules and expel students who engaged in criminal activity and obviously broke the rules of MIT because it might cause them to be deported. Now, this is where, as usual, liberals get deterrence all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are that you don't get expelled from school because you might get deported.
Right.
That's the idea, is to prevent the bad behavior in the first place, not excuse the bad behavior in order to protect them from the consequences. Colleges are so backwards.
No, yeah, they have it completely around the wrong way. The question again is for all these young people, and I know there are polls that show outside of social media in the real world, most American support is real. I understand that. But for these people, you see here, the disruptors, the protesters, where do they go? Where do they go in 2024 if this is
they're real mad at Biden.
They're very mad at Biden. You heard that guy at the Hillary Clinton event talk about the idiotic, statement of this terrible president, et cetera. They're not pleased with him at all. What do they do in 2024?
Well, the problem for Democrats is that they would have two outlets, Cornel West and Jill Stein. Now, I think RFK...
Are they in a ticket or are they two separate...
No, that's two separate
it's the Green Party.
candidates,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I also think, a Manchin might be appealing to some who don't want either party.
Right.
And RFK might be attractive to people who don't want either nominee and are sort of more right of center populist.
Yeah.
But certainly the hard left has two choices, right?
That's it.
Outside of Biden,
Yeah.
which I think can cause a problem for him in a close race, which if I don't know anything about this race except that it will be close if these two are facing up.
Right. I mean, if you're one of these people and you're seeing it's a race between Biden and Trump, I think a lot of times in your mind you're going to be thinking, what's the difference at this point, if that's how you feel? If you feel that, for example, that Joe Biden is in the pocket of the Zionists, the Zionist lobby.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you transitioned us to 2024, race to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
There's news.
Oh.
Tim Scott has suspended his presidential campaign. He announced Sunday that he's suspending. It was a surprise announcement, and we can go ahead and hear a little bit of it from Trey Gowdy's Fox News show.
If you ever want to love your country more, run for president. Traveling this country, meeting people has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my entire life. I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me not now, Tim. I don't think they're saying, Trey, no, but I do think they're saying not now. And so I'm going to respect the voters, and I'm going to hold on and keep working really hard and look forward to another opportunity.
By the way, speaking of people who know when to act like an adult, I genuinely enjoy Tim Scott. I think he's a great speaker. I think he has a great message. I think that message in this moment on a stage with a bunch of other people debating doesn't necessarily get the hearing that would work for him. But this is the correct way to run a campaign. Do your best, like raise your money, raise your profile, talk to voters, decide whether it's viable, and when it's not, get out.
It was a very positive message. She has very high likability, and I think there's a valuable lesson here, and that lesson is to not dismiss the Trey Gowdy show on Sunday night. You might think there's other things to watch. It might be football.
There you go.
But you're like, you know what, though? What's going on the Trey Gowdy show? And in fact, it was so funny because Trey Gowdy didn't know what to do. He's like,
whoa,
what? He's like, what? He's like, I'm processing this, live on TV, and it's national TV. So, I mean, he tried to ask a few questions. And in fact, he was very complimentary to the point that you actually saw Tim Scott get kind of choked up at hearing these compliments. Now, I understand that a lot of the
Trey Gowdy's also from South Carolina, right?
I think
We got a whole crew.
There you
the
go.
South Carolina Mafia, the Palmetto Mafia down there.
That's the Palmetto Mafia. They say there were a lot of campaign staff who didn't know that Tim Scott was, leaving until the time of the show.
I mean, sure, but also you're watching the race, guys.
Yeah. So, the big question, Mary Katharine, is with him out, do you think any of the other candidates benefit, or do you think I've seen some poll breakdowns that show that it's about evenly proportional between Trump, DeSantis, Nikki?
I would kind of guess it splits not super in favor of one person. He and Nikki Haley, of course, are both from South Carolina, but have faced off.
That was a problem.
Perhaps more than others on the debate stage. I think a DeSantis is a nice fit for sort of evangelical voters that Tim Scott was courting. But I don't know if they all pile into one camp. Perhaps he will decide to endorse. I don't know. Nikki Haley, for her part, I think is going up with a big ad buy in Iowa. I think
this is her moment. If there's a moment now in this primary, not counting Trump, who is many, many points ahead, among her other candidates, this is the big mo.
Well, and I guess the plan is that she wants to push Ron DeSantis in such a way that he wouldn't be able to make it to South Carolina, maybe. I'm a little surprised that she's not playing more for New Hampshire, which I think is a better fit.
That's right.
With more sort of suburban, educated, more moderate voters for her message. But I guess she wants to try to take out DeSantis in Iowa.
I mean, this is what's going to be very interesting because DeSantis has put all his eggs in that eye with Kim Reynolds, the governor, endorsing him. He finds that to be of great value, and so he's going to try to win that Iowa caucus. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, New Hampshire, Nikki Haley has, I think, a decent shot of taking that.
Right.
And then there's South Carolina, where she was the former governor and was very popular.
That's her home, yeah.
If that happens, Trump then has to figure out he's going to have to debate one of these candidates at some point, I think.
Some point. By the way, can I just tell a quick anecdote from the plane about the absolute futility of our jobs, which is to some extent trying to figure out the average voter?
All right.
I met a voter on my flight back from, I believe it was Vegas to Georgia.
Okay.
Alabama fan, 40-something man. And we got to talking a little bit about politics. And
Did he know who you were?
No. And I just want to tell you that when it was between McCain and Obama, he voted for Obama, which he's, he voted for Obama because Obama had Eminem on his iPod. Now, he thought about voting for McCain because they had lived in some of the same places before, but he decided that Slim Shady overrode that part of his decision-making process. Now, interestingly about this voter is that he was well-informed. He knew about a bunch of issues, but
following it.
Nonetheless, and perhaps it was a little tongue-in-cheek, nonetheless, Slim Shady was
the deciding
seemingly
factor.
the deciding factor in that vote. So just when you're trying to
If
make
only
sense
the
of
McCain
all
campaign
this,
knew this.
that's what maybe I should call the campaigns and be like, just a little word of advice. Put
right.
some Eminem on your.
Although at this point in time, it's no longer 2008. I don't know if
I
that
know.
would still work.
Yeah, but that demographic still responds, right? That's the age cohort. At any rate, voters often make decisions based on who they just sort of like on a gut level, things that connect with them in that way, and sometimes parsing by policy and all these other things that we do is not really what's happening on the ground. So something to remember. I do want to note also, I think this is a nice move from DeSantis in Iowa. There was a moment where the RNC was threatening to punish anyone who went to a very traditional Iowa forum run by Bob Vanderplatz, president and CEO of Iowa's Family Leader. It's a social conservative gathering. They chat. It's not a formal debate. And the RNC said, no, if you go to this event, then you cannot be on the debate stage. And Ron DeSantis said, I don't care, I'm going.
Yeah.
He called the bluff. And I think that is a wise move.
Yeah.
I think the RNC shouldn't have been doing that. I think it's an attempt to stack the deck for Mr. Trump by saying these people can't engage in reaching voters in Iowa that they need to reach.
Right, and it's not a debate.
And when he said that, it turns out, oh, look at that. The RNC changed his policy on that.
Yeah.
And that is, I enjoy that about DeSantis.
Yeah.
He often finds something that he believes in. He makes the call. He's not afraid of making the call. He stands up for that call. And then it looks, oh, look at that. Things sort of fall into place.
Yeah. So I wouldn't go as far as Vivek did in the last debate, calling out Romney McDaniel for her bad management and leadership at the RNC. But I get it. There's been a lot of losing going on.
There's a lot to answer for.
Question is, who? Or is it the messaging?
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Well, and I do think, look, there are things to answer for. There are losses. There are very underwhelming cycles several times over now. And what I do not love coming out of the RNC is not taking responsibility for that. I believe McDaniel is in a fight. Well, I'm not sure how much the Youngkin team is fighting with her, but she's saying, oh, no, they didn't want our help.
Yeah. Oh, it's local. We don't do the local races.
Right, because we're definitely in the purple state of Virginia, the red governor is definitely passing on money.
Yeah.
From the RNC, like, oh, we don't need that in our perpetually outspent state.
Do you think Tim Scott lands anywhere or falls anywhere within the Trump orbit now?
I don't know. I mean, he wasn't going after Trump hard.
No.
So that leaves the door open. A friend of mine noted, who's very good at keeping receipts on Twitter the other day, that Nikki Haley, despite being a strong debater and somebody who is not shy about landing a punch on stage, has not been going after Trump for about 2 months. She hasn't mentioned him publicly, whereas Ron DeSantis has been going pretty hard straight at him. That's interesting to me. I hadn't noticed that it had been that long because she's been, of course, willing to fight with everyone else on stage.
If, of course, she becomes the front runner, then things will get awkward.
Yes.
Especially if there is a debate and Trump decides to show up. Do you put any what's the word looking for here? I'm at a loss. Any credibility or on rumors of the Trump Tucker.
Oh,
ticket.
the Trump Tucker ticket?
Yes.
I don't think
That took
Trump,
me a lot of time to get that out. I apologize.
I don't think Trump would stand for someone on his ticket who takes that much attention.
True. You're
Don't
supposed
you
to
think?
get somebody who compliments you, either
Right.
somebody who has foreign policy skills or
Right.
somebody, but certainly not somebody who's going to, you think, overshadow you. There's a lot of excitement I hear. There's a lot of excitement about that.
I want to do a little crime update, both from D.C. and San Fran, where we
yeah.
have some developments. But
Yeah.
let's start with D.C. Secret Service agents protecting President Joe Biden's granddaughter opened fire after 3 people tried to break into an unmarked Secret Service vehicle in the nation's capital. A law enforcement official told the Associated Press the agents assigned to protect Naomi Biden were out with her in the Georgetown neighborhood late Sunday night when they saw the 3 people breaking a window of the parked and unoccupied SUV, the official said. The official could not discuss details of the investigation Monday on the condition of anonymity. One of the agents opened fire, but no one was struck by the gunfire, the Secret Service said in a statement. 3 people were seen fleeing in a red car, and the Secret Service said it put out a regional bulletin to Metropolitan Police to be on the lookout for it.
You know what that means, by the way? That means somebody else's car has bullet holes. It's great.
It's true. A couple things. That's Georgetown.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Georgetown, now no part of the city is immune to this. And D.C., I think it's attempting to sort of turn to a different form of messaging and policing at this point because this has gone so disastrously. Right. But one of the things the city puts out is how to drive in D.C. so that you don't get carjacked.
Oh.
And it sounds like a missive from a third world government.
Right.
I mean, it is like, stay in the middle lane, don't stop for too long, never roll your windows down, keep all your doors locked.
Lessons in offensive driving.
It is.
How to break out,
lot.
how to escape from like a roadblock or something.
For the nation's capital, it's a lot.
It's
guys.
very sad. Not surprising that it's good, that you're going to have these crimes happening in fancy places in the upper Northwest or in Georgetown because that's where the money is. As much as we tend to think about, don't go to certain parts of the city where it might be dangerous. Where is the money? Where are the fancy cars? Where can they go? And this is how there's no borders that separate Georgetown, Wisconsin and them from the rest of the city. People can go anywhere. I mean, this is so. And you've had crime,
which is weird because during COVID, they would lock you down happily.
They would,
but now
they removed those roadblocks.
Yeah.
After
turns out
COVID.
We have civil liberties
That's right.
again in order to rob people.
It's a real problem. That Mayor Bowser has to deal with the D.C. City Council. To wit, there have been 863 carjackings this year. The D.C. City Council, for those of you outside this area, they lessened the penalties for carjackers. They want to make which they thought would somehow lessen crime, but in fact, it's increased crime.
So weird.
It is very
only
weird.
Up a couple 100%.
From year to year, it is a 106% increase in crime. And I want to point out, besides this incident involving the Secret Service protecting, this is Hunter's daughter, Naomi, in Georgetown.
Granddaughter.
So it's Joe's granddaughter.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
There was also the case of the Redskins running back Brian Robinson.
Yes. And
he was shot trying to protect his car from being carjacked. He was shot in the leg. The shooter was a 15-year-old.
Jeez.
And waiting for his trial for this, he went out and he shot a 92-year-old woman who survived, killed another kid.
Wow.
And so then got remanded to, I just was reading about this the other day because I said, what happened to that kid? Went to juvie and will be released when he's 21.
Well, at least he's there for a couple of years now. My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm throwing this one at you. I did not preview this one,
What
but this one turned my stomach.
Oh.
The man in New York who fired his weapon to stop the violent mugging of a woman was arrested. A suspect, this is CBS News, who allegedly opened fire to interrupt an attempted robbery on a subway platform Tuesday night, is now in custody, sources told CBS New York. Police said it happened at 9:13 p.m. Near Times Square. No one was injured. There's no word yet on the charges. He's 43 and he was taken into custody after police received a tip to Crime Stoppers identifying him as the man in the video, saving the woman from a mugging.
No, let's go after that guy.
Not only that. So Matthew Roche, 49, allegedly tried to rob a 40-year-old woman, demanding her bag. Maybe he'll be arrested too. I don't know. Are we doing that anymore? Anyway, the woman he saved is quoted in media as saying, well, yeah, I appreciate being saved, but like, it seems like you could have done it without the gun.
It scared her, she said, to know that there are people roaming around the city with guns concealed. She better not go to Texas.
Honestly, I don't know what to say.
She said, sure, of course I'm happy, but you know what?
This is cultural Darwinism.
Yeah.
If you are that willing for your fear of a guy who's going to protect you with his gun to send him off to custody and applaud it and talk about it in media, then yes, no one ever wonder again in New York why people don't help.
Right.
This is why.
The other Good Samaritan in the subway in New York, remember?
Yep. Is he still in jail? He's still in jail, right? Probably awaiting trial?
Waiting trial, I think. And what does it say? If you see something happening, don't help.
I mean, not in New York, for sure.
No, just let it happen.
I know it's controversial, but try that in a small town.
And you wanted to talk about San Francisco, too.
Okay, San Francisco. That one makes me sad.
Yes.
That one makes me sad. Okay. But good on that guy, and I hope that all comes out okay.
And props to the New York Post for publicizing the insanity so that there will be more people sort of aware about what's
perhaps like the man at the bodega owner.
Yeah.
He will be let off without charges soon enough. Okay. Let's talk about San Francisco. In San Francisco looking gleaming this week.
The streets have never been so clean.
Buildings have been painted. Things have been repaired. Yeah. Homeless encampments have been moved. We are not sure where.
They scooped up the waste.
In very
and the needles.
Short order. Let's hear a little report on that from the San Francisco local Fox affiliate.
Yes, that's right. The summit is expected to bring in $53 million, filling hotel rooms, bringing big business. And the city did tidy up for Dreamforce, but this cleanup is much more extensive. While San Francisco is in the spotlight for the Asia-Pacific Economic Conference, city leaders are making sure the city shines.
Tourism is our business here in San Francisco, and we need to focus on making sure that the tourist dollars still come back.
Caltrans repaving major roadways like the Harrison Street off-ramp from the I-80. BART doubling down by deep cleaning their stations overnight more often.
The city had gotten a little bit dingy over time.
Scrubbing and power washing is happening all over the city.
Yeah, the bottom of my shoes look clean.
It's noticeable how clear the streets look and how few homeless encampments there are on major thoroughfares.
Having been a longtime resident in the Bay Area, you just naturally start to wonder of houseless folks being displaced.
Public Works is installing decorative crosswalks in North Beach and Chinatown, and the Webster Street pedestrian bridge in Japantown was recently repainted. The Yerba Buena Gardens at the Moscone Center are decked out with new colorful landscaping and murals, paid for by the Clean California grant, just in time for the 20,000 high-profile CEOs and heads of state coming into town next week. Some people say this should be how it's always done.
What about the people who are here year-round, and local, hardworking, working-class Bay Area folks?
Others welcome the cleanup.
Anything that brings in a positive look on the city of San Francisco is great.
We will continue to do everything we can to maintain cleanliness in our streets.
And city officials are saying that there are no additional funds that are being allocated for beautification. Departments are just using existing budgets. They also say that those budgets are being moved so that they can focus on the areas where APEC is taking place. The summit is expected to start on Wednesday, and of course, people will start coming into town over the weekend and early next week. I'm live in San Francisco. Back to you, Julie.
All right, nothing like a little extra motivation to clean things up. Crystal, thank you.
Yeah, what about the people that are there every day?
Somebody said on X that it reminded him or her of stories of this is probably what Berlin was like in 1936. And it is true from a very dark perspective, which was that when the world was coming to Berlin, and of course Hitler wanted to showcase, oh, this is the future and fascism and everything, they had to like wall up the ghettos so they wouldn't see what's happening there. They actually issued like instructions to police to like fewer beatings, and so because they don't want to hide, they wanted to hide what they were doing to their people because the whole world's watching, right? And then Beijing, when they hosted the Olympics more recently, moved a lot of people out. This is a different case because we're not talking about,
although also in service of Xi Jinping.
Yeah, so that's
they have that in common.
Well, actually twice. That's right. That's exactly right. And in this case, we're not talking about, the ghettoization, the Jewish quarter in Berlin. We're talking about homeless being able to use the bathroom on the sidewalks.
And open drug markets and all of that, right? Yeah. Now, interestingly, what did happen to the folks that San Francisco says it cannot deal with on a regular basis? I'm interested in following up on that.
Right.
They give this line to the regular people, the taxpayers of the city, that they can't possibly do anything about this problem. And then when a bunch of world leaders and CEOs come in, the important people, they are able to do it. And they're able to add beautiful planters, and they're able to paint buildings and have decorative crosswalks and keep everything clean. Here is Gavin Newsom answering some criticism on this front.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true. But it's also true for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations.
So the conversation just ended.
So I looked up the context of this because I thought maybe I'm being unfair to him. No, that's the entirety of the answer, is that we've been having conversations, and he finishes, we've raised the bar of expectation between the city, the county, and the state, and our federal partners as well, that we all have to do more and do better. It doesn't answer the criticism. Well, he says it's true what you're saying. We did clean up for them. Perhaps we'll clean up more in the future. But in fact, it was for these folks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Decline is a choice, right? So
Golly.
This is
he said to somebody else, he said to some other outlet that like, hey, when someone's coming over to your house, you clean up your house.
Yeah, and for the people who live there, go
not in my house, by the way. Steve keeps a orderly ship over here. We clean up. We'd be cleaning up every day.
The residents are always happy.
The taxpayers get their money's worth at Steve's house.
That's right. No, it reminded me, remember when Joe Biden had to give a speech at Union Station, and suddenly all the encampments around Columbus Circle and inside, everything was clean, it looked nice. Not only because it would be bad optics, but also for Joe Biden that he wouldn't have to look out at this, Yeah.
Well, yeah, his feelings are what's important.
It's just terrible.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. They can choose to do this. You can do this, but of course they have all these issues that they gin up, saying we can't do it for X, Y, right to camp. Oh, except, well, wait a minute, maybe we can.
Mm-hmm. Suddenly it aligns with their values. Yeah. Okay. One last one. Randi Weingarten.
Oh, yeah.
Randi Weingarten. I actually wrote about this for Reason.com. Head of the American Federation for Teachers, one of the instrumental folks in keeping American schools closed longer than any other place on the planet, basically, in major metro areas. She links an Axios piece this week that is a jumping off from a Washington Post study about homeschooling and how it's the fastest growing form of schooling in the nation. It's hitting all demographics, all income levels. This is her contribution. Link, what's behind the increase in homeschooling? Now, I would like to say that this tweet, I don't know if it's a statement or a question, because it shows a lack of commitment to proper punctuation that is actually the answer to the question. This is why people are leaving, Randy.
Yeah, she is the head of the AFT. It really sums it up.
Or it could just be like Randi Weingarten, what is behind the increase in homeschooling? Because she is actually the answer.
So she's just trolling us, isn't she?
Honestly,
or do you think
I think she is.
Or is she genuinely like, this is interesting? Because again, the last thing that she wants is accountability.
She followed up at some point by saying, oh, I see the reply guys are on fire. There are no reply guys because she doesn't allow replies for anyone that she doesn't follow. But what she said was basically like, we're not providing the correct services and gun control in order to keep people from having to resort to homeschooling. To which I say, maybe you shouldn't have taken a break from giving services for 2 years. Yeah. There was a vacuum. Right. People filled it. Those people were parents. Many of them discovered that they like a flexible, tailored, interesting education instead of sending their kid to a building where they sit on their butts for 7 hours a day or get Zoom taught for 2 years.
I was talking with somebody at my son's current school about what it was like at the time in the public schools. And, you didn't have to have your camera on. So a lot of kids they would turn it on and actually play video games. And the homework, there were no tests. Like nothing was like, nobody was failing, right? They didn't want to fail anybody at that time. And of course, Monday was called asynchronous. So, there was no actual teaching. They just told you, okay, do this on Monday. And then you would have the teachers talk to you on Tuesday to Friday. And then they would try to have everyone in your rooms do a little exercise together.
Yeah, it was a treat. It was a real treat.
It's depressing.
And she was the person, among other elite leaders, who said, this will be fine for your kids. This is going to turn out fine. It's important that we do this. Yeah. They assured everybody. The people who said, we don't think this is good for kids were called crazy people or grandma killers or whatever it was.
That's right.
And she remains in power, which is perhaps, and frankly, there's been less accountability for it than there should have been. And that is perhaps why a bunch of people are taking accountability into their own hands and their own homes and saying, I'm out on this. Yeah. And they deserve every single lost student that they lose. And hopefully those lost students find better places to be instead of just literally being lost and never going to school again. Way to go, Randy. Round of applause.
On that note, that wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Matus.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast, and you should on Instagram and YouTube. You can see our shining faces as I rant about Randi Weingarten. Once again, you can check that out at reason.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to do some taste testing next week for Thanksgiving, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.